He is the auxiliary bishop of ASTANA, Kazakhstan, and he's a well-known defender of traditional church teaching. He joins me this evening to share his thoughts on the synodal path, true liturgical reform, and his soon-to-be-released book, The Catholic Mass. Please welcome Bishop ATHANASIUS Schneider back to the program. Your Excellency, thank you for being here. I want to start with some important news. I spoke earlier with Edward Penton about the recent developments at the German synodal path. As we mentioned, a dozen statements were being considered, including the blessing of same-sex unions, and even one that seems to question the need for an ordained priesthood. This week's plenary session was called off due to a lack of quorum. Too many bishops stuck around to the end of the meeting, making it impossible to conduct business. What do you make of this so-called synodal path? And does this slowdown indicate some resistance?
A synodal path or a synod has the aim to strengthen the faith and to clarify the faith, to defend the faith. This was since the apostles, the aim of a synod. And so to transmit the integrity of faith. And now what we are witnessing in Germany with the synodal path is the contrary. It is an evident and direct denial of the divine truth in the case of homosexuality and the hierarchical structure of the church which Christ gave us. So we have to resist against this work of destruction of faith.
The German bishops have now extended that synodal path to 2023. They say the path and these action items are necessary to reinvigorate the church after the sex abuse crisis, etc. Do you believe that capitulating to the world, catching up, if you will, with the times, is the best way for the church to engage the German faithful or any faithful?
No, always when the church capitulates before the world, it is becoming weaker. And we have to be the contrary. We have to, of course, we have to acknowledge the evil which was perpetrated inside the church, but nevertheless we have to be confident and have the self-sureness that the truth remains, and we have to start a renewal of the life of the priest to holiness, the life of faithful new families. This is our task, and we have not to be intimidated by the world, by these cases which we have. The church will always remain a church of sinners, but in the same time a church of saints. And we have to continue to proclaim the truth of God and the beauty of a chaste, holy Christian life.
In your mind, Archbishop, what is needed now, not only in Germany but all over the world, to reinvigorate the church and to make her relevant to the Catholics in the pews, which I think is part of the aim here of this synod?
The most important and basic and most urgent thing is to return to Christ, to the truth, to turn to the Lord again, to His revelation, to His truth, which we received from the apostles, from the saints throughout the 2 millennia in which the Church handed over us the beauty and the integrity of the Catholic faith. This we have to restate, and to restate the centrality of God, of His Word, the centrality of Christ in the liturgy, to give Him absolute priority, and only then the Church will have fruitful and fruitful spiritual mission and evangelization in this time.
Archbishop Schneider, when one looks at these synods, and they're going on really for the better part of a year or two, it seems there's an attempt here to reposition Vatican II and redefine it, if you will, after the clear definitions articulated by John Paul II, Benedict XVI, who are actual men of the council, we should mention. Is that what's happening here? Some have suggested that may be the case.
Yes, this is an attempt, the synodal ways, or to transform the church or the local churches in groups of discussions according to the parliament style. This is foreign to the tradition of the church. We have not to establish the truth or to seek the truth. We have already the truth received from the apostles, from the church, and we have to again to restate the beauty of the Catholic faith and the truth in this time. This should be the task of a council, of an ecumenical council, and of synods. And therefore, I hope that in this process, so-called synodal process in these years, there will be also heard the voices of the faithful Catholics who love the faith and the liturgy and the holiness of the Church of all ages.
Since we last spoke, Pope Francis released his MOTU PROPRIO, Guardians of the Tradition, placing restrictions on the celebration of the traditional Latin Mass worldwide. What do you make of the rationale for that MOTU PROPRIO at this moment? And have you observed any abuses that have been alleged to be tied to the old Mass?
To my experience, I had a great experience in visiting communities and parishes and families who are attracted and love the traditional liturgy, and I could not observe really what Pope Francis accuses these people as to be divisive or to fight against Vatican II. Nothing of this. Maybe there could be singular cases, as in every community, and therefore this accusation is an evident pretext, because behind this MOTU PROPRIO there is another agenda. This decisive rejection of tradition, of what the Church, not only during centuries, but during millennium, prayed in this ancient traditional rite, which was already before the Council of Trent the identical rite and order of Mass as after the Council of Trent, and which brought so many fruits in the life of the saints. And therefore, this traditional rite is so expressively stressing the centrality of God, the eternity, the sacredness, and therefore it is it could be this kind of Mass which transmits and proclaims this truth, the eternity, supernaturality, to grace, is an obstacle for the agenda which is now promoted, unfortunately, by the Holy See, primarily an agenda of the temporal things, the earthly things. And so such a rite, the existence and the spread and the growth of such a rite, Christocentric, is maybe a reproach also for those high-ranking churchmen who chosen the earthly temporal agenda. This could be also a possibility to understand the background of this MOTU PROPRIO.
Speaking of the liturgy, you have a new book coming out in January, The Catholic Mass, Steps to Restore the Centrality of God in the Liturgy. Why did you feel you had to write this book now? I mean, it seems prescient in the midst of all this liturgical upheaval and questioning.
Yes, I think that we have to be very, very honest and to go to the roots of the crisis. And in general, the deepest root of the crisis within the life of the Church since the Council, and which now reached its culmination, it is precisely that man puts himself in the center, and Christ, God, was put aside. And this is the problem. And in a special manner, this anthropocentric attitude is manifested daily in the manner of celebration of the Holy Mass, especially in the Novus Ordo, and then towards the people celebrated, which is really a demonstration of the man-centered style of life and prayer. And this is for me the deepest cause of the current crisis. We have to return and to give Christ the precedence, the primacy, and the center in the manner of celebrating liturgy. And this will be the healing, the crisis of the Church.
You divide the book into 12 chapters, each explaining what the Catholic Mass is. Mass is prayer, it's ritual, thanksgiving, sacrifice, etc. These chapters really are a series of interviews, correct? Why did you decide to structure the book this way? And what was the most important aspect of the Mass that you wanted readers to understand?
Yes, we have to understand the meaning, the essence, what is the Holy Mass. And from this comes the manner of behavior of the rites. And therefore, as the classical philosophical motto says, agere sequitur esse. The acts flow out from the being. And so we have to, again, to show all the richness of the meaning of the Holy Mass. And therefore I started with the first topic. The Mass is adoration. This is the first meaning of our being created. This will be all eternity our first task, to adore God with the holy angels in heaven. And this was the primary intention and aim of the sacrifice of Christ on the cross, the adoration, the veneration, the glorification of the Father, of the Holy Trinity. And he did this through his sacrifice of love for the Father and for us, to redeeming us by this supreme act of adoration and love, redeeming us from our sins. And therefore the Holy Mass is substantial, inseparably, and sacrifice, redeeming sacrifice of the highest and most sublime adoration of God. This we have to stress. And from this flows out our salvation and the graces of transformation of our lives and Holy Communion.
Archbishop Schneider, Benedict XVI established in Summorum Pontificum that the ordinary form and the extraordinary form are one rite, the Roman rite. How should the two forms coexist, in your opinion?
They are quite different, we have to be honest to say, the traditional rite and the Novus Ordo. So I think it would be more honest to say they are really, they belong to the great rite, the Roman rite, but the Novus Ordo was so much drastically changed that it's really different. It's kind of two rites. We have to be, and Pope Francis, in one of his recent interviews, he states this and says that those priests who now want to celebrate the traditional Mass has to be compared, or it's a kind of bi-ritualism. So the Pope Francis itself said this is a bi-ritualism. Bi-ritualism. And so, as for example, the Pope Francis mentioned, as priests can be Latin priests celebrate the Byzantine priests, so they give the indult of bi-ritualism. So the Pope also compared the traditional rite form of the Mass and the Novus Ordo. And in this case, it is evident there are quite different forms, rites, and it should be, I think, in the future, they both should become closer and be one rite, or maybe with some small differences, but substantially the Novus Ordo has to go back to the essence of the traditional rite of all times.
Mm-hmm. Give me a sense, before I let you go, what is your great hope that readers will come away with from your book, The Catholic Mass, when it's published in January? What's the message you want them to take away and the reason you wrote it?
My hope is that those, the faithful and the priests who will read this book, will again discover the richness, the spiritual, the doctrinal richness of the Mass, which Christ gave us as the greatest gift for His Church here on earth, the Holy Mass, the sacrifice of the Holy Mass, that they can discover the beauty, the richness of this rite of the Holy Mass, the Mass itself, and then also in the rite, how to celebrate, how to behave yourself during Holy Mass, to be united deeper with Christ, and to be grateful for this unspeakable gift which Christ left us on earth, His holy sacrifice on the cross in the Holy Mass, and His body and blood which is nourishing us on our journey to eternity. So this is my intention, to strengthen the priests and faithful to discover this beauty of the Holy Mass, and then to bear fruits, more fruits in their daily life.
Bishop Athanasius Schneider, I thank you for being with me. The Catholic Mass, Steps to Restore the Centrality of God in the Liturgy, is available from Sophia Press. It'll be available in January at bookstores everywhere. Bishop, thank you for being here.
You're welcome. God bless you.